Hello, listeners. This is Mridutpal Bhattacharya back with the fifth episode of AI Now. We have with us today Mr. Abhivardhan, CEO, Internationalism, and Managing Trustee and Chairperson for the ISAIL. We shall be discussing AI consequentialism and its implications in reference to the Indian nation. Hope you guys have fun. So, without further ado, the first question to Abhivardhan sir, right down to brass tacks, is what is consequentialism and what hold might it have on the world of ethics in general and AI ethics in particular? And also, how is consequentialism different from categorialism? Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Milpal. Well, consequentialism is a part of this school of utilitarians. So, in jurisprudence, this actually starts from Bentham to Peter Singer to John Stuart Mill to whatnot. All these people actually believed in consequentialism. It's a part of the utilitarian itself. Uh, Consequentialism basically simple means that if something has happened, then what happens after that? So if something has happened, how you retrospectively control it? That's the question which actually we need to deal with, and that's what we do in this particular field, consequentialism. It's a particular understanding of things, and there is something called prospective and retrospective. So consequentialism is about what consequences can be. Now, it can differ from country to country. There can be various schools of understanding, but that's how consequentialism works. It's about the art of understanding consequences and incidents.
Alright, so we can say that it is a basic departure from the teleological prospect of Aristotle's works.
It can be kind of a departure, uh, but yes, we can also say that this is more of a classic liberal conservative development, which actually happened after the 17th century. The art of being a consequentialist, how much consequences we have, how consequences affect things, and this is how this thing works. So, in general, I believe this is how it works, and this has been the major transformation so far.
On that note, jurists such as Bentham, Mill, Singer have been referred to. However, Immanuel Kant, whose theories are often associated and actually did contain duty based approaches rather than teleological approaches professed by Aristotle, have not been referred to. Thus, consequentialism can be perhaps inherently inferred to bear in consideration the ethics that are required to achieve an end goal through certain means without infringing any norms. But it's not considered a duty to do so. Why? Is it because Kant was a philosopher with a categorical moral reasoning?
No, actually, Kant's philosophy has been misused, to be very honest. What happened was that Immanuel Kant focused on a concept of constructivism, and his constructivism was about the experience that he got from the Congress of Vienna and the history that Europe had, a bloody history of wars before the First World War. And when 1900s came, everybody was saying the world will be united, more interconnected. But we knew what happened, right? First World War, Second World War. But nobody understood why First World War happened. Uh, it was not just a killing of Archduke Ferdinand, it was also about the aristocratic order that the world had. And interconnectivity could not have been possible if, everybody was not considered. Even at the same time, colonialism was obviously was going to get into an end, but still colonialism was there, right? So that also is a matter of consideration which we must have. After Second World War, colonialism started ending, and it ended very peacefully. Not peacefully, I would say, but still, to some extent, it started ending. Peacefully, it started ending in the 21st century. Some exceptions, obviously, there, but ended most fully. Uh, so, in that sense, I think Kant's ideas were nice. I mean, they were more about multilateralism, they were more about governance and responsibility with regards to decision making. That is something which we could not see in general in today. What consequentialism is all about, it's actually a different thing. So the problem with consequentialism is that it's a postmodern theory now, not the consequentialism that we had with the libertarian conservative one, the Burke and Locke disambiguation. It's not about that actually. So
Well, in that sense, if we talk about aristocratic people controlling the world, then in that sense, perhaps A.V. Dicey's rule of law is an example of aristocratic people covering the world and developing the world.
yes,
Well, then,
yeah, no issues, no issues. Go ahead. Yeah.
yeah. Then, how might the four schools of Indic thoughts, namely libertarianism, conservatism, secularism, and capitalism, shape the governance of AI by the government of India?
No, I think you're referring to my article. In the article, I typically meant something else. What I meant was this: these are not the tenets of the Indian school. Indian school doesn't even talk about secularism like that. It actually, because that is not how it works. So we don't define religion like we do in the West or in Russia. We define culture, because the thing is that Hindus and their futuristic developments, I should say, the progenies, various tribes and various, I would say, religious cults like it's Buddhism, Sikhism, Lingayats, and so forth. They are they are within that same umbrella of Sanatan Dharma, with their own variants. First of all, Shintoists from Japan also came from there. The Chinese also have a connection with us in that sense. But the thing is that we are more of a natural civilization. I find that similarity with the Chinese also. So natural civilizations always have this tendency of being organically secular, where you don't need to dictate secularism, but you can be different about it. But organic secularism is also about not even calling somebody, okay, you need to be secular like that, like the hypocrisy that happens every time. I mean, uh, I must commend Emmanuel Macron, the French president, for what he's doing on combating religious extremism, but still a lot of coercive measures might be required. But let's understand the modus operandi of organic secularism, and let's get into the four tenets. Organic secularism is all about understanding faith as a part of culture and nature. In the West, it is actually about faith and non-faith. The problem is that in the West, it's because of the artificial creation of faith. I'm not saying it's with all the religions. It's actually more about how you treat religion. So, thing is that in the West, the conception has been completely different. It has been more about the ordeal of how you understand faith and culture. The understanding of faith and culture is therefore different. And that is what is the most important thing here. If that is not a terminal, then more or less people would not be able to get a clearer understanding of what faith really is. That is why the whole havoc happens, wherein Westerners don't understand the East. They even don't understand China when it comes to their faith. I'm not talking about the Chinese Communist Party. They are a different thing altogether. The Chinese socialists are a complete different bunch. They are not even religious in that sense. It is the Chinese people who are religious. Chinese Communist Party is a bunch of people who believe in socialism, but they are actually limited capitalists, or I would say command capitalists. So that is a different thing. So these four tenets that I discussed in my article published in the Daily Guardian was about the idea that when you say there are four concepts like secularism, libertarianism, not libertarianism, capitalism, and the last one, which is I would say, okay, I think I said everyone. Yeah, libertarianism, capitalism, secularism, and conservatism.
Conservatism.
Conservatism. Now, what happens with these four is these four are the mainstream ideals of a democracy as well as the development of the modern civilization. Now, why these four are important is because whether you are a democracy or not, these four always will exist. And the thing is that again, first of all, religion you can't replace religion from anything. You try to replace it, it fails. For an individual, being an atheist is a different thing, but for a community, being atheist is a completely different thing. So don't consider that religion is not a part of your life. It can be. But at the same time, if you are an individualist in that sense, how much individualist are you towards the religion is your individual choice, not a collective choice, right? This is the difference between the Western and the Eastern approach. The Western approach has been more or less like that, dictating secularism and everything on people. That's not how it works. What is the Indian approach? So, what I said was that libertarianism and conservatism go hand in hand. They exist together. These drive our technology policies in the way of governance. Libertarianism teaches us how free speech, openness to things, uh, creating new things can be done, while conservatism teaches us how to protect things. And when conservatism teaches how to protect things, that's how these two things work. Apart from any any kind of evangelism or socialism, these two are not fitting. Although I would take socialism in a more economic perspective rather than an ideological and political perspective. So let's get on capitalism. Well, capitalism is very important because capitalism is actually does have various versions. American is different, British is different, European is different. Even it was not capitalism until Adam Smith came with the idea of economic liberty per se. After the 1750s, mercantilism came in, industrialization happened, things changed abruptly, and then new things happened. So this development is something which takes time. It doesn't happen in one day. Therefore, the whole idea of secularism, capitalism, libertarianism, conservatism are integral to our society. It doesn't mean that it must be imposed the way everybody does. It simply means that they're operants. So you have these operants. These operants can make an understanding of the world clearer, but it doesn't mean that it should be the same way that others do. It doesn't need to be. That's what I'm trying to say in this article. And why does it affect AI consequentialism? Well, the consideration here is this: all the main theories on AI ethics are based on consequentialism. Nearly all. I mean, understanding of thinking of AI being an entity. What is AI being an entity? For example, you say AI is a tool. The subject matter of AI, the subject matter which is AI, is a tool. Second analogy: that subject matter AI is an entity itself, making something, doing something, involving something, somewhere. Third aspect is AI is a third party. Then it can be AI as a medium, which means a tool. We can say it's the same thing. These are the prima facie understandings, right? Now this can travel from thinker to thinker, and it need not to be too much diverse, because in that sense, these are the basic analysis of disruptive technologies. That's how disruptive technologies really work. So the problem doesn't stand with disruptive technologies. The problem stands with something else, which is actually understanding how these disruptive technologies will help you or not. And that is how AI's role come in, because AI has to do with the effects of what it does. The whole debate and research in the world on AI ethics is going on the same question: what will you determine after your consequences? Here, the your is being referred to AI, and the problem is that nobody understands how to deal with it, because more or less most of them have this problem that okay, fine, we are going to do it, but to what extent, and how will it help everyone? This is a very serious problem which people ignore hand in hand. And that is why it is important to understand AI ethics deeply. And that's why it is important to understand consequentialism.
Well, then again, we are all afraid of what we don't understand. So, coming to the next question, how can technology be, with reference to your article, obviously, how can technology be politically relevant, especially when it's a disruptive technology like artificial intelligence? And what implications does consequentialist ideology have on it?
Okay, let's take an example. For example, in the West, particularly the United States, theorists focus on the concept of intermediary liability, okay, and procedural regularity. More or less, they focus on regularization of AI, so that they understand, okay, fine, this is what AI is doing, how the liability is done, so. But the problem starts from here only. you are giving AI something into an uncharted territory, and at the same time, you don't have any particular solution for it. Because the problem is that you have tried to involve AI in many operations. If you try to do that, tell me, fine, there are certain consequences, but automating everything or involving AI everywhere is also not the solution. Instead, what I'm saying is involve AI wherever necessary, but only when it is necessary in a reasonable way. The problem is that wherever you think that AI is going to replace human beings is a very theoretical flaw. Humans are dynamically very advanced. The problem is we have not realized our capabilities at a collective level. It's a spiritual problem. It's an aesthetic. It's a psychological problem. Now it is nothing to do with humans being bad or good, whatever. It's not like that. It's like uh, you know, it's like this. You have mental health issues, but there can be one person who is mentally very immune. So what? The people who are mentally not well, are they nothing? No, they need recovery. They need to come out of their problems. People who are physically specially able or disabled, whatever word you use, I wish to use specially abled in the sense that they actually are specially abled. However, they are not disabled because that actually is a taboo. So they utilize themselves. You use your machinic hands and help them, your machinic legs or something like that, or machinic heart. I think so. Or I think helping in the cardiovascular processes and so forth. You can do that. There's no issue with that. That is how technology works, right? Technology's role is what? Evolving human lives, not actually decreasing the extent of human life. So here's an aesthetic problem. The aesthetic problem is this: most of the time, Western and European thinkers think that AI can actually change your lives. Well, I have not seen that happening. I've never seen that happening, and the reason is that if you try doing it, it's a kind of an imposition. So instead of imposing things, try for some solutions. It's the best thing you can do. Instead of imposing it, try from some practical ideation measures. For example, you're utilizing AI in restaurants and anywhere. Ensure that human capability and skillfulness also increases. That's something which the West is failing to encourage. That's the problem. In India, we need to avoid this problem if we are going to become so much capitalist, which is nice. And I embrace it because India did not have its capitalist moment, even after independence. Frankly speaking, they had this colonial hangover, then the post colonial hangover, and all that. So we need to get out of this economically, we need to get it stronger. But after adopting everything, we need to ensure ourselves that we are not the slaves of the same thing which is going on. That's the same thing. That's what I'm talking about. So I'll get further when you ask questions.
Well, I guess we should all perhaps remember collectively, obviously, that we are the ones to be able to create AI, and AI did not create us. We need to bear that in mind throughout our lives, I guess. Perhaps that will cause the underlying fears to subside. I don't know. Maybe, or maybe everyone's just afraid of a Spielberg future, like Terminator future, probably. Anyway, so the next question is, what are the underlying problems that the Indian approach to AI consequentialism holds?
Sure. Well, the question was regarding the problems that Indian approach to AI consequentialism holds. I don't think there is any problem because we have not created anything. None of our none of the discussion papers or any drafts by Niti Aayog or the Ministry of Technology and Telecommunication prove anything significant. What they have done is copied from the European Union. Game over. More or less, they've done the same thing. See, the problem is that, uh, for example, this artificial intelligence stuff, you are actually creating abstract things. And when you are asking, fine, okay, a coder should have a culture, then what culture are you talking about? Are you talking about a culture of deterrence, or are you talking about the culture of being responsible? Well, actually, there was a very interesting insight from the conference, which is Sci-Fi 2020 by Observer Research Foundation. Very interesting conference. Everyone must watch the highlights. In the conference, What happened was that it was very interestingly shown that and Samir Saran, the president of ORF, gave his final remarks. And actually, one of the remarks that he said, I will repeat that, obviously not quote it, but paraphrase it, is what he said was that developers cannot be the cowboys they have been before. Digital marketing and digital networking cannot be a cowboy affair. Uh, you cannot use technology for your own sake and then just get away with it. It will not happen ever again. And that's what the morale is here. I would not say morale, but the inference in that sense. Um, One thing is that we copy a lot. We don't know our culture. We don't know our limits, and we don't know our abilities also. But startup India is a good thing. Some things are happening, not everything. Obviously, it's not expanding like the Americans, but still we need to learn. Secondly, India does have a foreign policy tendency, or I should say, domestic policy. I don't know. It's a very basic tendency that we learn a lot from the WHO. Oh, sorry, the United States. Sorry, WHO. From the United States, we took their culture, we took their principles of democracy and free speech. I don't know whether we apply it or not. It's a doubt. We Americanize every civil right protest. We do it all the time. We copy hashtags and then we come up. So all of this happens, fine. But you're not learning from the Republican ideals of America. You're not learning from American exceptionalism. And you're also not realizing that Americanizing everything is a flaw. That's not how countries grow. That's not how culture grows. And that is bad. That is kind of an ethnocentrism imposed by some particular country or some particular set of people. I don't blame America wholly for it. I blame the Americans for it. Why should I blame the country for it? I should blame the people who are responsible. And for that matter, I also blame Europeans because ethnocentrism is a big problem that affects the way technology ethics works. How we determine technology ethics is actually about understanding the transformability of technology. If you're not able to understand how technology transforms, how are we able to make any solution? So I will explain in this way further to add the point. Um, we can actually learn from the principles of our texts, like Bhagavad Gita, Vedas, and so on, and at the same time understand the deeper philosophy with regards to time, space, the art of references, and connecting it with any subject matter, whether it is human, whether it is AI, or whether it is anything. The mundane nature of time and space is the cause why AI is consequentialist, which is 0 seconds, 0 seconds, 1 second, 2 seconds. What if there's a next between these 2 seconds? What will happen then? Nobody even thinks about that. That's also an important thing which we must talk about. Not in the sense that no, yeah, I'm being mad here. There is a very interesting book published by Springer by Professor C.K. Raju. You can read that. It's actually about this only, consequentialism and time, mundane concept of time. Very interesting. So, thing is that you can determine it, but I see AI as more of a cultural entity in the sense that it has both cultural and individual attributes. Being cultural doesn't mean you are collectivist. It can be both. You have to do in that sense. So that's the main thing all over. Now, I am saying in this way because I believe that if we really need to understand, so I have some ideas for it. Let me suggest. If we believe that we need to get this thing resolved, how AI works and how things work, let us get on effective solutions. And what is the effective solution for it? There's no one solution. There can be a bunch of solutions. For example, you don't believe that AI can be utilized for a replacement. Number one. Second, focus on education as a part of asset, in the sense that people develop their skill to understand how far the AI can go and where shall the limits lie. That should be the better objective. Then the utility of AI should not be based on something which is too much selfish. It can be based on better collective values, better responsibilities. That's what the Indic approach wholly is, and you can learn from it. We can also learn that uh, human essence is very important. See, human essence defines how AI will work, because if humans have this want or need towards AI in certain manner, then it will obviously affect the way AI works. So develop that, fix it, fix this problem right away. These can be some suggestions I give. Apart from this, yeah, one more suggestion, then I'll ask you, then I'll take your questions. Is that the best thing that we can achieve here is this: make AI, but focus on AI being more of a tool instead of being a full-fledged entity. If you want to make it a full-fledged entity, then also evolve your free speech, evolve your right to life conceptions in a reasonable and cultural geographic manner, instead of just getting on Europeanized narratives. Focus on AI biases and black box operations. That is important. Focusing on AI and black box operations is necessary. That is a technological feat required. It's an issue of trade secrets also, because when AI is being used for any particular measure and people are getting benefit from it in a form of finance or monetary, whatever, like that, in those same lines, then obviously trade secrets issue comes in. Black box AI is responsible for it. Explainability of AI therefore cannot be only an issue of technology. However, it can also be an issue of culture of trust, culture of cooperation, culture of honesty. India can achieve that, and we can achieve that like the South Koreans and the Japanese. So let's see.
Well, I guess Indians are somewhere down the line to be blamed for Europe for working on Europeanized narratives as well, because I think I have kind of seen this a lot of times that Indians are more interested in Western philosophies and Western concepts than their very own concepts, whereas the Indian concepts happen to be much better. Now, maybe we believe in a one size fits all theory, maybe, I don't know, but however, whichever way it may be, we need to make sure that the right thing follows. No matter what the way is, we need to make sure that the end is right. Perhaps it might as well be our duty to do so. So, anyway, so all good things must come to an end. Therefore, we are ending this discussion as of now. Hope all of you had fun and the discussion was insightful enough. Stay safe, stay tuned. Godspeed.